I'm Em,
And I'm Lex.
and we're thrilled to welcome you to the Ready, Set, Coach podcast.
Now, we're not just your hosts. We're also mamas, entrepreneurs, coaches, friends, and co-founders of the Ready, Set, Coach community.
What began as a pandemic side hustle has blossomed into a vibrant online community crafted by coaches for coaches.
So when we're not immersed in our coaching community on Circle, we're busy managing our other businesses, navigating the ups and downs of life, and of course, recording this podcast.
This is where we dive deep into epic conversations about life, business, coaching,
and everything in between.
So are you ready, Lex?
I'm set, Em.
Let's coach.
Hi, BBB.
Hi, Lex.
How's it going?
Oh, guys, I disclosed a nickname to her at a very vulnerable time in my life. When I was 12, I went to summer camp in Wyoming.
Wait, first, this is a disclaimer. If you have little ears, we're gonna have some words, okay?
I will bleep it. But I went to summer camp in Wyoming, and it was by the Tetons, the Grand Tetons, which are a mountain range in Wyoming. And Teton in French means boob. And so I was called the Grand Tetons, or BBB, the big boobed. Brr.
Big boob bitch.
Yeah, there we go. I was 12.
Oh, so I was jealous of the girls like you because you developed early and got all the attention, which from a parent standpoint, I feel like was probably horrifying. No one wants their kid to develop early, probably in that lens.
Greg describes it beautifully. He thinks that I looked like a Mr. Potato Head.
Well, you also have the unibrows.
Yeah, like all of my parts didn't really fit together yet. They were like wrong shaped. I had long, skinny arms, long, skinny legs, these big boobs, the bushy hair.
I have skinny legs and big boobs. Wow.
I'll send you a picture after this. Maybe I'll include it in the show notes.
I have seen ample photos of you as a youth, and I will say that your beautiful face took a minute to match up to your beautiful body.
All the parts, they just took some time to grow, and I had braces. I got all of the colors for every holiday. Did you have braces?
I did not.
Did not? Oh,
this is fun. I had the middle of my teeth when I was 18. I had it filled in, so I always had a small gap.
You did? Did you have a thing hanging down and have it snipped?
Nope.
Oh, okay, never mind.
I just had it filled in. And I had to have multiple teeth like surgically removed. I still have baby teeth. I'm going to an oral surgeon tomorrow to officially address it because they're getting, apparently I'm getting older, meaning the baby teeth are like on their last legs. So it's a whole thing. They have to like take it out. Then you have them out for like 4 months because they have to heal. Then they like surgically implant. I don't know. It's a whole thing. Can't wait to see what that's going to cost.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. The next thing on my teeth to-do list is I have receding gums.
Oh, you do?
Which,
let me see. Doesn't look like it.
Oh, thank you. All my oral surgeon friends say otherwise. And
yeah,
so
I would never think of that.
Every time I go to the doctor, they're like, well, are you done having kids? Because maybe it's time for you to do this surgery. I'm like, I don't want to do this surgery. And then they'll
can't
tell
see
me
it at all. Because the
brush.
way you smile and your mouth hits, you can't see it.
Yeah, I'm not too gummy, which is good.
You're not like one of these.
Yeah, I'm not a gummy smiler, but it's one of my friends did it. They take the skin from the roof of your mouth and then they graft it. I think is what
Graft. That sounds
graft,
right.
is that
Skin
the right
grafting is like burn victim units.
Yes, yeah, they graft it right here, and then you have to do it twice. And I'm like, no, unsubscribe. I don't want to do that.
This has been a really fun squirrel of a conversation.
No, this is actually, you guys are knowing us intimately now. Lex, do you wear glasses?
I don't.
Gosh darn it. Okay, guys, I'm like really blind and negative.
I don't wear glasses, and I know you do.
You wear glasses sometimes, though.
I wear computer glasses to make myself look smarter sometimes to combat the blondness, although these ones are pink, so that's probably counterproductive.
Really helping. No, I think I want to get LASIK. Like I'm at that place where I want to get LASIK. I think it would be such a dream to wake up and be able to see. And every once in a while, when I've had too much to drink, I fall asleep with my contacts in, and I think miracles happened. And I wake up and I have perfect vision.
Miracles happen. You know, this whole conversation has been setting us up for a perfect transition, guys, because today we're going to talk about we're not going to talk about the seasons of life yet. What we're going to talk about is how to prepare for and embrace different seasons of your business, especially as a coach, because this is amplified.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Lex, you are still crushing those transitions. I think I don't know, guys. I'm starting to think we should just do like a whole episode on transitions and put Lexi to the spot to the test.
Lexi, okay, quick squirrel. And then I'll get us back on track. Two things. I call my mom often. We're friends. And that came out weird.
She's my best
And
friend.
she's never understood our chit chat at the beginning of the show. And I'm like,
Really?
oh, I would think like you would like it, Mom. It's like you getting to hear me with a friend. She's like, I don't get it. And then she also today said, why does your PR bar feed look like more ugly? You're using those like white and black things. And I'm like, oh, so I do the screenshot notes because they do so much better. I'm like, oh, those perform well. And she's like, can you do anything to make them prettier? I'm like, no, Mom, they perform well. She was a creative director for 30 years. So it was, she never delivers it in an asshole way. It's always very polite, but anyways.
So Lexi's mom, you are listening to this podcast right now and you're wondering what the heck we're talking about.
It's probably like unsubscribe.
Oh no.
Whereas my other podcast, which doesn't have this component, she's like all about. So it's very interesting because if you meet her, you would think she'd more be the person who would just like the chit chat. Anyways, I digress. Let us know if you like this or if you always go tap, 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 tap until we get to the meat of it. I do listen to a murder podcast where they have 15, 20 minutes of chit chat. I never listen to it. I always go past it straight to the core of the show.
Fascinating. Okay,
Yeah.
good to know.
Let us know.
We need to listen to a podcast called Giggly Squad. So that's our homework, Lexi, as a follow-up. I think it's just straight chit chat the whole time. So
Nope,
maybe
absolutely not. I unsubscribe. Okay, so how to prepare for and embrace different seasons of business. Now, let's preface this. Again, we're going to be zoning in on coaches, but a lot of this is transferable cross industry. So, if you're not a coach and somehow you're listening to this coaching podcast, you know, there's still be tidbits here for you. So, Emily, what lens do we want to start with?
I think we should talk about the predictable seasons of life versus the unpredictable seasons of life. So, Lexi, can you give us an example of what a predictable versus unpredictable season could be?
Yep. So if you're a fellow female listening, this while maybe maybe it happening was predictable or unpredictable, but when you get pregnant, now you know in 9 to
Or
10
get a
months.
baby or adopt a baby.
Actually, I would say that's a little different, and let me tell you why. Because
Okay.
when you're pregnant, you know you have 9 to 10 months to prepare. Then you know, in theory, right? Unless something goes wrong, baby's going to come out, and maybe you have X amount of maternity leave. Where in the adoption schedule for my friends who I know who have adopted, while they know they're in the process, they don't know when it's going to happen. So actually, that's a good example, maybe of a little bit more of an unpredictable. It could also be like a big loss in life. It could be, you know, your spouse was laid off, so now all of a sudden your income got cut in half. So your question was, what's the difference? That's the difference. So there's a few different ways we can approach both. Emily, why don't you start with talking us through more predictable seasons?
I think you gave a great example with the pregnancy. And while I questioned the pregnancy because it could be unpredictable on when you become pregnant,
Correct.
you are absolutely right that you should have an ample amount of runway to plan and to prepare for things. So, caveat, Lexi and I both went through pregnancy while running Ready Set Coach, which was an incredible experience to learn from one another. But what was awesome about that is you can plan your content, you can batch newsletters, you can prepare your clients, you can let your clients know when you're going to be taking clients again postpartum. You have a lot more control, but you also you have this time off if you are choosing to take maternity leave that might have some gaps in income.
Yeah, and I think this also comes down to the structure, the type of coaching business you've put together. So for me, for coaching, I don't have, or I didn't have at that point in time, any sort of passive model, meaning I was very much involved in the day-to-day and I was the coach. So I prepared for, even though I wish this wasn't the case, there being a dip not only like at the top of my pregnancy, but as I got closer, because people didn't want to hire me and then me go away for maternity leave. So this is
Totally.
a reality that kind of smacked me in the face. And then on the back end, my husband and I were able to prepare for, and maybe that meant being a little bit more fiscally responsible for a little bit. That became a choice. So if there's a predictable change, there are a lot more things in your control, you know, that you can do to set yourself up to feel more secure during the transition.
And one thing that I did that I'm really grateful for, I lived in California at the time, is I had been payrolling myself as a coach. So I was able to take paid family leave. And so I wasn't taking money out of my business. I was taking money that I had already squirreled away to the government and then was taking it back, just a portion of my income. And that was really nice to have. And I had prepared a passive offering to go live when I was on maternity leave. Mind you, it was not to this, to the amount that I had hoped it to be, but it was something in terms of like combating me being that face-to-face coach that people relied on.
Something I want to point out too on what Emily did, because this is something I didn't do and I didn't have the foresight to. So if you have the ability to prepare for this, first and foremost is setting yourself up to be able to payroll yourself.
Mhm.
One thing that I transition to, it happened after my pregnancy. It was I went from an LLC to an S corp. I was still a legal LLC, but then I filed at least the PR bar as for taxes for S corp, which therefore then introduced me to the payroll system. I also didn't know that you have to enroll in paid maternity family leave by a certain point in your pregnancy, which I think is so early. Isn't it like 12 weeks or something?
Uh, I think even before that, I think
Yeah, it's like
any,
before some people even know they're pregnant. So that's a
yeah.
foresight now when we choose to go for round two that I have and that I will be on top of to the best of my ability.
And it's something that you don't know until you know. And
Yep.
the only reason I knew about it was because I had hired a coach to help me plan out my maternity leave for this exact reason, which was super, super helpful. She was like a financial planner for my maternity leave. And that was great. It also prepared me. No, did she prepare me? Right before that, too, another thing I did, and this is in tandem with this, is I got life insurance and I got short-term disability insurance as a business owner, because those were two things that I was really anxious about while going into pregnancy. Like, heaven forbid something happened to me. I'd want my husband to be comfortable and be able to replace me. And then the second thing is, heaven forbid something happened in my pregnancy or in my business and I wasn't able to manage my day-to-day of my business, I had protected myself by setting up that policy.
You're irreplaceable, Emily Merrill. I just want to say.
Oh,
Um,
thank you, Lexi Smith.
yes, it's a really great point. Now, let's talk about the other side of the coin. Like that's all fine and dandy, right? If a life
Yeah,
event happens, that is more predictable.
for
As
sure.
we all know, if you are a human listening to this podcast, life isn't always so gracious. So this is where I'd say some amount of personality comes into play. This is some amount of how much you're a planner. There's a lot here, but I'm going to tell you my take on it. I have always been fiscally responsible in the sense of having a rainy day fund, non-negotiable to prepare for moments. If you're someone who, money comes in, money goes out, this might be a moment for you to think about if you don't have something set aside for when time gets unpredictable, if you're willing to take that risk or if you want to do something about it. husband and I, we do shared finances. That's how our marriage works. We are very grateful that we have done that. For example, we lost a pet earlier this year, and that whole journey was well over 10, 15 grand. And thank goodness we have money set aside so that we weren't burdened. Whereas if we were money in, money out, it would have been a very, very different scenario. So the way we prepare for unpreparedness from a financial standpoint is by always at least putting something into the bank where we know this is kind of our emergency fund.
Lex, do you have a certain amount that you put in monthly? Do you do it weekly? Do you do it annually? How do you?
We definitely like look at our finances as like profit and loss. So usually we'll like quarterly look at like how much did we bring in, how much went out, did we net, did we break even, or did we make money? And based on that, then we go, oh, we made some money this year. Like now's the time to invest in the new front yard landscape, right? Or, oh, we just broke even. We're not necessarily going to make any drastic changes, but we're probably not going to make a big investment. Or we netted some, or we lost some. Okay, maybe there's some changes we can make. One thing I want to highlight here that I appreciate my husband for, childcare is insanely expensive. And so that added expense is basically like another mortgage. And we went into it knowing that's going to be kind of a temporary expense for the next X amount of years. So we are okay with not necessarily making a huge, we're preparing for that difference. And we are saving a little bit more than we normally would, and being okay with letting, the the metrics of it all being a little less favorable. So, but that's just us. This is not me saying you need to be like us, but that's how we choose to prepare. There's other things you can do. You can, rely heavily on credit cards if you have a supportive family. There's other options. What is your take on it, Em?
No, I think that's amazing. And I think I hate the story about the loss of the pet, but it's also like, it's nice to hear that it didn't bankrupt you and now you have to move out of your house and you have to take out a loan and pay these ridiculous interest price down. I will share in terms of unpredictable, and I don't know if I've shared this on this podcast. I probably have. I feel like you guys have heard everything from me at this point. But in 2019, which I call my dumpster fire year, we had an apartment fire. And one thing that happened was we lost like most of our possessions, which was really traumatizing. But the learning, we had renter's insurance at the time we were renting, and so many people like this is a two-part to the story. One, I feel like we were a wake-up call for so many people that like this stuff can happen, and a lot of people ended up getting renter's insurance. But two, because of the renter's insurance, we were able to replace a lot of the things, while they had sentimental values, we were able to replace things, and because we had that money and that insurance to help us out. That year though, or like that shift in the year, that unexpected obstacle that came up really, really, really took a hit on my business. All my attention that was focused on running events, and this was 2019, so we hadn't gone virtual yet. I was still hosting most of the events. I was coaching. Basically, my income dipped tremendously, and because my focus and energy was in a different place, and it was in rebuilding our lives. And so while it sucked, it really, really, it hit my, I don't know, it hit my morale basically, but it was also incredible to see my community rally around for me. So while 2019 was a dumpster fire year, 2020 was the exact opposite. Well, it was still a dumpster fire.
I was going to say, well,
yeah, no, but it was like a different type of dumpster fire. So those life pivots, it's funny. It's funny when you remember, I feel like people say like things happen in three.
I've heard that.
I
Yeah.
think it was the fire happened, then our wedding, then my stepdad was in a coma and passed away, and then the fire happened at our wedding, and I was like,
Okay, from a business standpoint, was there anything you did or something you wish you had did or you would do, quote unquote, in theory, if this were coming up to better prepare your business for a season like this? or no?
I would say I don't know how I could have prepared for it. I think what I would have done for myself was given myself more grace and more pause.
Okay.
And like taken the hit, which I did to the best of my ability, but I think I really subscribed to the like when in motion, stay in motion and pushed through it. And I feel like in that moment, in hindsight, I think I wish I'd given myself a little bit more grace that like I didn't have
Yeah.
to be everywhere and show up for everything. And to know that the outcome would probably not the same if I showed up for it all or if I didn't show up for it all.
Hey everyone, Lex here.
And Em.
And if you haven't heard, we did something pretty darn cool.
We sure did. We launched a completely free community built specifically for coaches.
Say it again for the people in the back.
We launched a free community for coaches. Tell them quickly who it's for and what we're doing inside, Lex.
Sure thing. So it's for anyone from the coaching curious to side hustlers to coaches ready to scale. And through the virtual platform that we've built, we've created a safe and fun space to learn, launch, grow, connect, ideate, collaborate, vent, and evolve together.
Nailed it, Lex. Now, while it's free, you must apply in order to gain a free membership. You know, so we can make sure everyone inside is awesome, like us.
Apply today at readysetcoachcommunity.com. And I think that's a beautiful thing to highlight. I also want to, for anyone listening, totally give a call out that Emily and I we have a lot of privilege on our side in a lot of ways. So we don't want to be insensitive to if you're not in a situation where you have a partner or a large community or funds to fall back on. We're not preaching that. We want to be aware of what we have. At the same time, maybe this episode can be just a little bit of a wake-up call in the sense of what have you done to think about it? Is there something you can do, even if it's $50 from a paycheck, even if it's just looking at, is there some sort of insurance that I can look into, and just put it, on your adulting to-do list so that you have a little bit more space to have grace if things flip upside down.
And I'll be honest, Lex, I went into a lot of debt that year. I went into a ton of debt that year and I had to untangle that debt in the following year, but it was what my option was. I wasn't in a place, to your point, like I didn't have a huge safety net. At that point, I had just moved from New York City to San Francisco. We were planning a wedding. It was a very expensive, all around expensive year. Also, the insurance, this is another PSA in terms of insurance. The insurance we got wasn't like the most premium insurance. And so it only provided like a certain amount of coverage and a certain amount of money back. And our neighbors who were also impacted by the fire, they had, I think, another insurance that they paid like $15 more a month for, and they had their housing covered for 2 years.
Yeah. Lots of adult decisions. Okay, so we're going to move on from the personal life one because we want to talk about some other things. And we could probably stay on this note for an hour. So let's quickly talk about some things that are pretty typical of a coaching business model. So if you register to or decide to have a more seasonal business, meaning maybe you launch groups once every X amount of time, then it's going to be very common for you to see, let's say, a 20K month, then zero the next month, and then maybe zero the next month, but then maybe another 30K month. And that can be really, really jarring to have such big highs and lows. And so what we want you to think about is if you are choosing that type of business model, how can we prepare? How can we know that this is going to be the case so that we aren't so jarred when it happens? What do you think, Em? Any tips here?
Yeah, I think that's a great one. I think one of the first things to consider is to like think of the income that you're going to take in for the year and divide it by 12. So it's not just like a month by month thing and you're feeling that high and low of every single month. So if you're making a 30K month, a 0K month, 10K month, add that all together, divide by 12 so you know like what the revenue is supporting you over a 12-month spread. With that in mind, or at least with your projections, play Lexi, like be a Lexi on this and be really conservative. And so be conservative in what you're paying yourself, be conservative in your spending. And at the end of the year, you might have this opportunity to pay yourself a few bonuses. You might be able to invest in that coaching that you wanted. You might be able to invest in like the brand design. But be conservative to the best of your abilities and know that, again, don't be hard on yourself when you see a 0K month come in and then you see a 50K month come in. Like, know that this is a seasonality and that it's part of the journey of the business model that you enrolled in.
100%. And I think something that's harmful is we see so much messaging. We're advertised so much messaging in the coaching space about the pie in the sky being consistent in certain number of months. That can be the case, but it also cannot be the case. It really comes down to your business model. And if you're doing this thing organically, or if you've integrated ads and passive offers, right? So be wary when you see that, and know that often, unless you have an ongoing rolling evergreen offer, it can be challenging to hit consistent months. So that's one thing we want to talk about too. And actually, a quick, because we've talked a little bit more on the business side, Emily had a really good point regarding being conservative. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. So at the end of every year, I'll say this past year. This past year was, and I'll talk about because we'll talk about Ready Set Coach in a second, but my PR business did really well. And I took a phone call with my accountant and I'm like, should we change my salary? And he advised me, and I agree with this, to not increase my salary. I'm an S corp, because to that point, it gives me more safety net. And then I can take, if you're an S corp, draws if I need to. If I have a really great month, instead of adding to my payroll, which is more permanent, I can take a draw. Or at the end of the year, bonus out, so that I'm not getting really excited because, the first I had 3 really good months. So I take a huge withdrawal. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, something happens and then I don't. I'm preparing for a sustainable business model, knowing, once I see how things go, I can always take draws at that time.
And I think that's a really good point also about these people who are multi-millionaire earners or whatnot. Like, they might be making millions of dollars in their business, mind you, but are they paying themselves millions of dollars?
Yeah, no is the answer.
Most likely not. Talk
Yeah.
to their accountants. We can get the scoop. Oh, we should have our accountant on. This could be a
Oh my
fun.
gosh. David.
Okay, on that same vein, so talking about seasons of life, preparing seasons. Shoot, I was gonna say something and
So we talked about fluctuating monthly revenue. Should we talk about fluctuating moods?
Yes. Okay. Yes. That's exactly what I was gonna say. So I was gonna say, in terms of, you have to spend money to make money kind of scenario too. So I think in having a business, and you guys have probably heard this, I've had people come to me and complain. They're like, "Oh, starting a business is expensive." Yes, it is not. It is not for the faint of heart. That is for sure. There are definitely expenses, and there are front end expenses that go in before you even see money back. And there might be seasons of life where you are spending more money than you are making more money.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that you are potentially hiring the next level of business coach for your business, or you're reinvesting in your branding, or you have like systems operations implemented. And knowing that, well, it can be really freaking scary, guys. Like, Lexi and I have both done it. We have held hands doing it. We have done it separately. And it is definitely like it gives you pause in both what you're doing, and you're hoping that this investment is going to help you like triple your investment or your income in your business. Like, by learning more skills, you are learning more. And there will be a season of life in terms of investment that you might not be actively selling in your business. So it's kind of like a double threat. You're spending a ton of money and you don't have a ton of money coming in preparation for like a next iteration of what's to come. And
Mm-hmm.
Lex, what do you have to add to that?
To that. Well, I also just want to relate that back to, it's kind of like the childcare scenario I was talking about. Like, this is
Totally.
a season too. So just to give you a non-business example. But okay, I want to talk a little bit about Ready Set Coach. So because this is a season that Emily and I are in, it's a season we prepared for, and let's talk about it. So Ready Set Coach was a high ticket group program 4 years. And we knew at one point we wanted to change the business model so that we could impact more and be a little bit less involved in the day to day. And that meant turning to community, going after volume, and turning our offer passive. We believe and had the foresight that that wasn't something that was going to happen overnight. So we made a decision halfway into 2023 to flip that switch and give ourselves the grace really of a year to see it through. And we're about probably halfway through it now. And guys, we have consistently taken a hit on revenue intentionally. It would be so easy. In fact, we talk about all the time, like, let's just do a group because it'd be nice to see an influx in capital. But what did we do? We launched a free community, zero revenue there.
Yep.
Turned a passive offer. We did a very soft launch. And we're in an ads course right now because we are preparing to turn it up. However, we're also preparing that when we start this new tactic, being advertising, it's probably not going to hit gold right away. So
No.
we're taking this very thoughtfully, intentionally, and slowly right now.
And before we got on the call today or on the podcast, we were talking about the movie Dumb Money. And having a business is a lot like the stock market. There's a lot of research, there's a lot of faith, there's a lot of holding on and kind of gripping the ride. There's so many moments that you want to hit like cash out. I want to just get the payout and that's it. I'm done. I don't want to continue seeing it go up and down and up and down. And that's what we're doing in our business right now is this aspect of we're investing in ourselves. We're going to be investing in ads. We are going to be probably spending more money than we're making initially and testing something that we don't have a 100% guarantee will work.
Yep. And that's kind of the risk part of life, right? Something Emily and I have done though to combat that. When we knew we weren't going to have the income from Ready Set Coach, we were able to make sure the other business entities and revenue streams we had in our life could sustain us while this happened.
Yeah.
So again, going back to being very methodical and preparing a safety net to support this. That being said, who loves to spend more money than make more money? I'm not saying it's fun. I'm not saying we're chilling here. This is part of, business ownership and entrepreneurship. There's definitely a risk involved, which is why being rooted to your why and being passionate about the damn thing is so important.
Yeah. And I think that's a great example of just one of the different seasons of business. And one thing I also want to dive into is like, you guys might be feeling, I feel this during the holidays, Lex, the season of like a version of my business where you're like, all I want to do is do a puzzle and drink hot cocoa and be around the fire and read a book or whatnot. Like the last thing I want to do is my business. And you might feel that in February, you might feel that in January, you might feel that in all different times of the year, and know that those seasons are normal and healthy and happen to the best of us. But Lex, I think before we end the podcast, are there any best practices you have when you feel like a personal task aversion, or you're just a machine and
Well, no, yes, no, yes or no. Do I have task aversion all the freaking time? For me, that looks like, oh, I have to do content creation again. I just did it, or oh, I have to do accounting. There are a few things depending on the point of business you're at. And I'll speak to this side, and then I'll let you speak to the other side. You can, if you really assess it, decide if there's an opportunity to now outsource it. For me, for accounting and bookkeeping, that was the case for one. After I'd done it myself for a year and a half, which I'm really glad I did because now I understand what I'm paying someone for. But when I month after month was like, oh my God, is this really any more the best use of my time? That was an indicator for me to outsource and bring on bookkeeper, which I have for both my businesses. Shout out to Via Bookkeeping. Via Bookkeeping, Carrie is amazing. So that's one way to handle it. However, that's not always the right answer. Emily, can you talk about the case where outsourcing isn't necessarily either an option or the right answer?
Yeah, I think a lot of times people are really quick to outsource things. I've noticed it I notice it in websites. I know it in newsletters. I notice it, oh my gosh, so many things, content creation, all of the things where then people feel reliant on another individual. So Carrie Jane, which I hope you never go away, we know how to do it. And I think it's really important to learn how to do the thing. So then you can, if for whatever reason, like your virtual assistant goes away tomorrow, or if your bookkeeper goes away tomorrow, you can step in and you can still drive the plane. And oftentimes there's a lot of passengers and very few pilots. It's weird.
No, you're so good at metaphors.
Thank you. Oh,
It's a skill of yours, I will
oh,
say.
you're so sweet. But I do think that's the case, that a lot of people are really quick at the beginning of their business before they've even tried Squarespace. They're like, oh, I can't do it. I need to save up. Oh, this is a whole different tangent, but this is so many people before they start something, they're like, oh, I need to save up to hire someone to do my website. And I'm like, just do the freaking website now. And they're like, no, I don't know how. I'm like, have you tried it though? And there's so many. I had the aversion when I first started my business too, like, oh no, I'm not capable of that. That's not my skill set. But I never gave myself the shot or the chance to actually give it a go until I did. And it's the
Be
same with
selectively. So I think you can, one thing you're saying too is you can't avert everything. If there's one or two things, like
Sure.
really you just can't. Like you don't have an artistic bone in your body, fine.
I freaking hate content creation. I'm gonna here, guys. This is like confessions of a teenage business owner. I hate content creation.
Confessions of BBB.
Yeah, exactly. The BBB. We come full circle, but I hate it. It like drives me insane. It takes me 10 hours longer than the normal human being. And there will be weeks that I will not post. And then there will be the next week, I'm like, wait a second, why have I not posted? I have so much incredible content. And so know that those seasons of business will happen where you're going to feel so turned off by your business. You're not going to want to be in your business. But then, and I was telling Lexi this before our podcast today, while you are, I believe that you should trust your intuition and lean into yourself and all of that. I also think sometimes you need to push yourself through the discomfort, because at the end of the day, I would be sleeping until 10 and not going to workout classes and drinking mimosas instead of coffee. Like it is just, if I didn't have that control or that push through to do the thing that I didn't want to do.
I think a hack here for you guys too, if you're finding that exceedingly hard to do it by yourself, is lean into accountability. That could be the form of one person, that could be the form of a community. So surround yourself with people who understand what you're going through and can help help lift you up and push through. You could even find that in a team. So yeah, to Emily's point, you can be your best friend and your own worst enemy here.
Yeah.
And my favorite Pinterest quote, growth never comes from our comfort zone.
I was thinking about this today in the same kind of quote. I did one of my favorite workouts today, bodied, which is a whole different conversation that I should bring up with you after this podcast, Lexi. But they have all these plants at the top of their ledge, and I was like, I grow where I'm planted, and that was just a quote that came to my head, and I think that's a real quote. But in terms of
Love
plants,
it. One
full
more
circle.
quote to end us today before we
Sorry,
go into
guys.
homework, because speaking of team, a team member and I were talking about our favorite life quotes, and this has been one of my favorite life quotes forever. It's by Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Ooh,
Let
so
that
powerful.
let that deepen. Okay, Emily, what's the homework?
Your homework is going to be to set a co-working date with someone that you know that's going to push you. So if there's something that you've been averting, whether it's a task, whether it's looking at your revenue, whether it's planning your maternity leave, whether it's figuring out like how you're going to get your savings up, but carving out an hour of your time with someone that you know is a pusher and giving yourself an hour. Maybe they're just on Zoom. They're not even looking at what you're doing, and you were committing to doing the thing that you have been averting.
I'm a pusher, Katie. I'm a pusher.
You're a pusher. You are.
And on that
See
note,
you later on the Ready Set Coach.
Coach podcast.
Ooh.
That was creepy.
If you're enjoying the Ready Set Coach podcast, please leave a review wherever you are listening. For more information about Ready Set Coach, visit readysetcoachprogram.com.